Super Rugby Unlocked, the final round before we switch over to Curry Cup. We already know the Bulls are the champions. They've still got one game to play against the Pumas. The Sharks and the Stormers game has been COVID affected, so we will go without that one. So just the two games. Last weekend, I think I get to use these Griquas, Cheetahs, and Pumas magnets and hang the glorious Cheetahs jersey there in the background. But yeah, it's been an interesting one because some of the games have had some like absolute classic moments, like Roscoe Speckman's try last week. You wouldn't do without that. But the fact that there's been 3 games called off and the competition largely affected by COVID is just disappointing, man. It takes a little bit of the shine off things. But that being said, the Bulls still remain the only South African team to get their hands on a Super Rugby title, be it unlocked or otherwise. So yeah, congratulations to them. They still do have this one game to play. However, the first game is the Cheetahs and the Griquas. The Griquas are winless, so they could use a certain win to go out on a bit of a high before they switch into Curry Cup mode, but they are big time underdogs for this one. I'll go over the bookies and the algorithm odds in just a second, but in terms of the lineups, the Cheetahs have made a couple of changes to their props. They've still got Fenta, Grunwald, Vignas, the hooker in the second rowers. You've still got Rudolph, who's a recent acquisition at number 8. He's the business, that man. Pokomela has been one of my favorite players to see since starting to watch Cheetahs games in Unlocked. And Sila is the other guy at the loose. Schoolman continues on at 10. Small Smith is out of the starting team, and Nisi comes in alongside Francois Steyn. Speckman is still there on the left wing. Rhino Smith starts ahead of Malcolm Yah. I got a soft spot for Rhino Smith because I remember I once did a video where I made a team all full of Smiths. From 1 to 15, every player had the surname Smith, and I believe Rhino Smith was one of those Smiths, if I'm not mistaken. And Clayton Blomakeys is there at 15. So Luanda Brain has been a bit of a stalwart for the Cheetahs this season. Doesn't start for the Cheetahs, which is a disappointment, but I guess you got to rotate guys in and out. I haven't seen if he's injured or not, actually. For the Griquas, they've made a few changes. Or is it just the one? They've put in L's in the Umbre 8 jersey for Momsen. I think it's the same front row. Lindsay and Smith as the second row. Willemse, Van der Merwe, Zach Berger, Tinas de Beer. Yeah, I think the rest of the players are pretty much the same. The Griquas have been kind of a mixed bag. Like they've had some good halves and pushed some teams this season, but still not managed to register a win. When I look at the odds, the bookies have got the Cheetahs by 20 points, which is saying they're going to give the Griquas a bit of a hiding. Although that being said, the Cheetahs haven't quite looked as sharp since that game against the Lions was called off, and they ended up having a bye, and then the COVID game called off. So since then, when they got that draw, they looked a bit kind of off the boil. I've got those numbers around the wrong way. It is 1 draw and 2 losses for the Cheetahs. But yeah, they kind of started the season with a bit of a hiss and a roar, and then it's just seemingly been affected a wee bit, which is not their fault, but yeah, it just is what it is. So we'll see what happens. The other game is the Bulls, who are the champions, like I mentioned, against the Pumas. The Pumas game last week was called off due to COVID cases. I think they've been testing those guys throughout the week, and I believe they've been cleared to play. There was still a bit of doubt about this game as to whether it would go ahead, but it seems they've been cleared. So that's a bit of good news. The Bulls have made a few changes. No Mornay Steyn this week. So our man Chris Smith gets the start at the 10 jersey. Cornel Els comes in at loose head. Van Rooyen is still there at tight head. Cornel Els is the hooker. And Yakane is tight head. Nokia is in the second row, which is good news because he was out, I think, last week. Arno Bota is back in the number 7 jersey. And the rest of the team's pretty much the same, I think. Arendse on one wing, Ishmael on the other, Hendricks and Hans are the midfielders, David Creel at fullback. So you got to admire, love him or hate him, what Jack White's been able to do with this Bulls team. And their journey's been a bit of an up and down one as well, because they've been not all that convincing in some of their games. They came out of the block so fast with that first opening weekend of the preseason games, and then looked a bit off the boil early, but then they've come really good. So it's a good sign for all the domestic talent in South African rugby to see what the Bulls have been doing. Interestingly, Van Zyl still starts at 9 and Papia is on the bench, so he's definitely won that job based on what we've seen this season. For the Pumas, they've had to make a few changes. Noda and Van Schuer comes in the front row. Kramer is still there at tight head. The same second row. Kleinhans is still there at the 6th jersey, but Makwandwa is on the 7 jersey. Engelbrecht is in the 8 jersey. September comes in at 9, which means Skinter Smuts has had to go to the bench, and he's been a bit of a mainstay for the Griquas this season, for the Pumas this season. Theo Boshoff is there at 10 still. Taliad, who's been one of their better players, is on the left wing. Moritz seems to be absent on the right wing. They've got Obi there instead. Devon Williams is still there at 15. And Van der Bunk is there in the midfield as well. And he's been one of my favourite players to watch for them as well. So, yeah, it has been a bit of an interesting season, you'd have to say. Disrupted, which is disappointing, but I don't know, man. It's been nice for me to see the Cheetahs playing. I've got an introduction to the Pumas and to the Griquas. I've got to see those games played in Kimberley, which is apparently a pretty tough place to go. But I wouldn't have seen that without the Super Rugby Unlocked season, so I am thankful that I've managed to get a bit of exposure to that. But yeah, Bulls by 30 is what the bookies have got, and Bulls by 12, a bit more conservative is what the algorithm has got. What do you guys reckon? How disappointed are you that the Stormers and Sharks game is off? In all likelihood, the Bulls were going to storm to victory in this final game anyway. But it's just something to make them actually have to work for it rather than it seemingly be gifted on a plate. But the Bulls put themselves in that position, so that's just the way it goes. But it should be an interesting weekend of rugby. There's still Autumn Nations Cup on. There's still Tri Nations on, so there's plenty to keep us busy. Hopefully these final games are pretty good ones. But you guys let me know your thoughts. Maybe Griquas to get that first win over the Cheetahs. Seems tough. But anyway, you guys let me know your thoughts, and I'll see you again soon. See you later.